I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.
Hey, welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction, but more importantly, it's about recovery. And it's brought to you from our friends at useonlyasdirected.org. They got a 3-part solution for the opioid epidemic. It is speak out, opt out, and of course, throw out. I'm Casey Scott. That's Dr. Matt. How are you?
I'm good.
Man, your hair's looking good.
Yeah? Do you like it?
I'm really liking
it. It's the COVID dude. No cutting.
And so how long have you been growing your locks?
I don't think I've had a haircut. In the last year, I've probably had 2 haircuts. Little trims.
What does the girlfriend think?
Well, see, that's the problem. I don't know, because she's so kind and supportive and loves me. I don't really know if she likes the hair, but she doesn't seem to mind it.
Do you like it?
Most of the time. It's kind of a hassle, but I don't know. I have a whole history of hating getting haircuts when I was a kid and never really, so I'm just letting it go. So
do you want to talk about that? Because I don't think you probably go see a therapist. Let me be your therapist.
Yeah?
What don't you like about haircuts?
Well, it's giving up control. You feel insecure. You never know what you're going to look like when you're done. Mm-hmm. Dad always wants the buzz cut when you're a kid.
High and tight.
Never wanted that. Wasn't cool in the 70s.
No.
You didn't want to be that kid, right? And so I think it kind of rolled over into adult life that I never really liked getting haircuts. So I'm just letting it go now.
I think I'm similar to you because last night I was standing in my girlfriend's bathroom as she was taking a comb and combing out my eyebrows so she could get the wild ones and make it look a little more tamed.
Yeah, we're at that age, man.
And I was like, man, I don't want to do this.
And that'll happen overnight. One day you look fine, and the next day you look like, Edward Rooney or somebody like that.
Every once in a while I'm driving down the road and I look in my rearview mirror and I see a nose hair poking out. And I'm like, that thing is long. How did that all of a sudden
that happens in hours?
Just pop out.
Boom.
So I do what I normally do. I take my fingernails and I pull it.
Right.
My eyes get a little watery. I roll down the window and I try to flick it out. Inevitably, it flows back.
Of course, it comes right back in.
Yeah. So don't eat off my floor in my car because it's probably got nose hair on it.
Oh, thanks for the. I want to talk about something. I want to talk about your shirt today.
The pink flamingos.
I mean, I don't think everybody could pull that shirt off. I couldn't pull off. It's a beautiful blue with just covered in pink flamingos.
So my buddy Kaleo, he invites me to his club to do a golf tournament every year.
Uh-huh.
And he thought it'd be cool if we had matching outfits. And so every year,
those friends, huh?
Yeah, every year we have matching outfits. And so this was just one of them.
This was
And I looked in the closet this morning and it looked at me and I looked at it and I went, yep, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you look like you're going on vacation.
I'm ready for a vacation, man. I only got 68 more days to blow.
Yeah, you're coming up on it, right?
And I think we should talk about it because I think sometimes I feel like everybody's on the same page as me. Mm-hmm. And so we'll be sitting around at a family party or I'll be at work or whatever it is. And I'll go, hey, I got to go blow. And 3 people go, oh, makes sense. And then the other 5 are like, what does that mean?
What is he doing?
Blow.
Yeah.
And so every day I have to drive down to the jail in Ogden, the Kiesel Center, between 6:30 and 8:30 in the morning and blow. And
what happens if you're late?
Ooh, you're getting in trouble.
Yeah, have you ever been late?
Never been late. I did miss one day, almost. And I showed up 2 hours late, and I could have ended up 8 hours in jail. So here's the deal. Here's the program. So you blow for a year. You get your license, and you're able to work and do this. But you have
so
to
it's a breathalyzer.
A breathalyzer.
Test. Yeah.
6:30 and 8:30 in the morning, 6:30 and 8:30 at night. You show up once, and you've got alcohol in your breath. You're spending 8 hours in jail.
They just pull you right in.
Here you go.
Okay.
Here's your hot and a cot. Here you go. Let's do this. Second time, it's 12 hours. Third time, it's 24 hours. The fourth time, they kick you out and you're back in jail.
Oh, you go back to jail.
You go back in jail.
Do you lose your license if you blow dirty once?
I don't know. I've never blown dirty. Okay. As a matter of fact, I've never seen anybody in the program blow dirty.
Really?
Pound for pound, I think it's the best recovery.
Why does it work? What's it about it?
It holds you accountable. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel human. and you're able to live your life. It's
'Cause
a pain in the butt.
Well, yeah, but not as much as you
Asking your girlfriend for a ride or calling Uber.
Rides, or making our poor guests take you home.
And our guest is Michael B., and he's from Utah County. He wasn't going to drive
the wrong way.
He wasn't going to drive up to Farmington to pick me up.
I'm from
Right.
Draper.
No, he's from Draper.
Just don't
Draper.
remember the moment.
So it's a good thing. So I need to tell, because I was sending a text to our boss here, and I said, can I call you before or after I blow? And all she sent back was question marks. And I went, well, let me clarify that. My kids all know what it means. I have to go down and blow for my license. And so, but it's been 68 more days.
You've been really consistent, and you're almost there.
Yeah. Hey, our guest today is Michael Birkeland. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's close enough. Birkeland. But listen, we're not in the old country of Norway, so Birkeland is the Norwegian way to say it. Scandi.
I love that. And you can see he's already on. He's one of my oldest friends. We actually started in the industry together probably 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And you might know him from Singles Ward, RN, Home Teachers.
Not RN.
RN.
That's nursing.
RM.
RM. Return Missionary?
Yeah.
Oh.
Return missionary.
That makes the movie make sense now. I was like, these guys aren't even nurses.
20 years you've been thinking, like, where are the nurses in this
It's the
film?
dumbest film I've ever seen.
To be honest, I've only seen the two that I was in, and that was Singles Ward and Church Ball.
yeah.
Well, Michael kind of single-handedly, like, introduced us to that genre of film, right? The Mormon comedy.
Single-handedly.
No,
there was-
But yeah. Well, our group, yeah. For
Kurt
sure.
Hale.
Kurt, Dave, Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so tell me how this all started
Moyer.
with the LDS movies.
Okay, so John Moyer he's the writer of the first few films, had this idea, and I believe it was called Redeeming L.A. It's a great script. And they're like, yeah, let's make this movie. Kurt's going to go stop working for his father-in-law, who owns Pride in England Trucking. He has this great job. Dave's going to stop, doing his land development, and they're going to make a movie. And they go into it a few months like, this is not going to work. And then one day, John, if I remember correctly, John tells Kurt, why don't you do my life story? Well, why would we do your life story? Well, I'm a comedian, but I was married, return missionary, married in the temple. I came home one day, and my ex-wife was drinking and smoking, like, I can't do this anymore. And then I had to go back into a singles ward. And they thought it was a hilarious idea. It was a good idea. And so then at that point, they kind of switched gears. And it was the first comedy. So, and then while making the film, I said, listen, I want to help you guys push this movie out. I've never done this before, but neither of you. So let's figure it out. It can't be that hard. And there's some groups who didn't want to work with it because we know their distribution deals are really bad. So as we start going out, the first theater we went into was the Carmack Wind Song in Provo. No one was going. Everyone thought it was an anti-Mormon film because no one had made a comedy before since The Phone Call. And that was a short film, BYU. So FHE group came in on Monday from BYU, and this is back before Facebook. This is email time. And they're like, oh my gosh, and started emailing everybody. And the theater company just said, if you can't get people to come, we've got to take it out. It's just the one theater. And from that day, and I believe for about 5 months, there wasn't one showing at that theater that wasn't sold out. And then that's what really kind of started. They're all going, oh my gosh, we're making fun of our culture. It's not an anti-Mormon movie.
So I was actually in Singles Ward, and I just had a little guest spot.
A big guest spot.
I was talking with Scotty Christopher. Mm-hmm. We were at a Singles Ward dance. Me and him were sitting on the bench. A girl walks by. We look at her, and Scotty Christopher says, hey, what are you doing? And he goes, well, you got to see their mom because that's what they're going to end up looking like. And I said, your mom's here or something like that. But the crazy thing is, back in my early days of acting, before I went to any auditions or anything like that, I'd always have 2 beers because it would calm my nerves. And so I would do that. So I was going up to do Singles Ward. I was nervous. This was my first movie. And I was getting driven up there, and I thought I was just going to have 2 beers. I didn't know where Heber was. So by the time I got there, I had 6 beers. And they were filming in a church. And I walked into the church, and I remember talking to Kurt, the director, and I go, I'm here for my job. And he goes, have you been drinking? And I go, yeah.
You wanted to make it like a real singles war.
Yeah, but so I said, yeah. And he goes, do me a favor. Go stand over here and do not talk to anybody. And I go, okay. So I go stand over there, and they go, let's hurry and get him out of here because he's got alcohol in his breath. We're in a church.
Really?
This is not good. And that's what my head, that's what I was thinking was going on. I didn't know how movies worked, and they were just waiting for my scene. So then I came down, and I sat down, and I did my line. And then I walked out and got in the car, and we came home, and I was like, I think I was just drunk doing an LDS movie. This is not good. But I kept that maintaining, and I always did 2 beers before, and then 2 beers became 4 and all that stuff. And so, I mean, that was my first experience in movies. And
really?
It was kind of crazy. And then those blew up, and we did Church Ball, then Stalking Santa, and, I mean, it was, but for a while, that was the hot stuff. But I remember me and you would always talk off mic and off camera, and we'd always have just a good time. And I didn't know you were battling substance, and you didn't know I was battling substance. So let's get into your story. When did the substance abuse start to take hold for you?
It was probably 1996. In fact, I tried to pinpoint it. It was right around 95 and 96. And I was married to my first wife, and we had a couple of kids already. And we had kids way earlier than I thought, and that really stressed me out because we were planning on graduating college, blah, 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 and then having kids, and then she got pregnant. And something about that next year, I just kind of like started to shut down. And I felt like everything that I ever wanted in my life, wanted to do, was getting backseated. Not in a selfish way, like, oh, I want my life, whatever. Just, it wasn't going chronologically the way I needed it to go. And I wasn't the smartest kid. Almost fell out of high school, did great in college, but my brain kind of turned on when I was 19 somehow. But before then, I failed everything. So I really getting off my program of how it was going to work, I thought, I'm going to fail at everything. And I could not seem to kickstart my memory. So a friend of mine says, hey, you should go see a doctor. I was on Adderall, and I was like, oh, what's Adderall? No one, never, in all my schooling had ever even mentioned anything. Just, he's a dummy. I mean, that's really because this is the 80s. And so I took Adderall. My brain shot up like a rocket, and I was like, what in the heck did you just give me? And at the time, this is back early 90s, Adderall was not the least expensive thing. Matter of fact, it was cheaper to get on the street than it was to get it from a prescription.
So it hadn't gone generic yet, like it is now. And
so you're
like
right, $500, I think.
Very expensive, yeah.
So you can get on the street for like $300 for like a month's worth. And a friend of mine one night goes, oh, dude, it's way cheaper. Just do cocaine. It's the same thing. Gave me this whole story of how cocaine and Adderall are the same thing. Laid out this chemistry set. And I was like, really? I thought first you smoke weed and then you're robbing banks. I mean, that's the commercials. They don't sell drugs
Reefer
properly.
madness.
Yeah, it's so dumb. They need to change PSAs for drug and alcohol because they're not telling the story properly. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So anyway, so I said, okay, let me try it. It's cheaper, and by golly, it worked. You had to do it more often, and I think because I was always this fit kid, always in athletics, etc. And I knew when I started to go be a comedian, if you want to be seen more, you need to be heavier. If you're a normal-looking white guy, you're going to get lost in everything. But if you're Hispanic, if you're black, if you're fat, those are the guys that get more stage time than anybody. So I planned to put weight on.
It was conscious.
Oh, yeah. I saw it work. People used to tell me on my mission, like, oh, you remind me of Chris Farley. I didn't know who he was yet because he came on while I was out there. And I came back and I was like, my gosh, he reminds me of my brother. My brother's thinner, but they acted the same. And I was like, oh, that's it. John Candy, Belushi. If you're heavy and white, dude, you're set.
That was your recipe.
Yeah. So then that's kind of when and when I went to a doctor once, he's like, and he just said, he goes, you have some things in your blood. And I knew him, so he did not report me, thank goodness. But he's like, I've never seen anybody ingest that much cocaine and gain weight. And I was like, dude, I can eat steak all day long, man. And if you give me cocaine, I'm going to eat more. And I don't know why, but apparently it curbs people's appetites. Not mine. So I went from Adderall to cocaine within like a couple months, and then I started, and no one knew this. I
had no idea, and I thought we were pretty good friends.
Yeah, in fact, the word cocaine in the 90s was not a word you wanted to use. And so I think if you said I smoked weed, you're like, all right, cool, man, we smoke weed together or something. But you used something harsher, and it really freaked people out. So, and to make you feel better, I was high as a kite all of Singles Ward. I was on cocaine all day long and all night. So, in fact, I got to the point where I had to smoke marijuana just to fall asleep. So, I that's how I kind of got into it. But then I saw, oh my gosh, my brain's turned on. I couldn't stop reading. I couldn't stop learning. Couldn't stop memorizing. Couldn't stop anything. and I never wanted my brain to turn off. And I felt like my brain had got turned off. It's not really what it was, but I just turned it on full speed. But the problem is you get immunity. And
tolerance.
Tolerance, not immunity. Were we in the 1800s? Okay. Hey, immunity, my boy. Hang him! Anyway, I got tolerance, and so more. And I kept it secret for so long, so I started selling it. No one, not even did not know I didn't use. They had no idea I was selling. That's how I was
funding it.
Yeah. I could have, looking back, I could have probably bought a boat, but my addiction was pretty high, so.
You snorted a boat.
Yeah, which is so dumb. Shame on me for what I put my family through. But anyway, so that's how it kind of got started. And then I got into marijuana shortly after because my friend was like, "Oh, dude, I can't sleep either." But I started smoking weed. Dude, you can fall asleep. I was like, "Really?" I don't know where his weed was better because I've had really crappy weed. Not to lighten what this is, but there is good and bad drugs of every kind. And I mean, like a baby, I could sleep. And I thought, great. I went from. I grew up a good boy. I went on a mission, got married in the temple, and I thought I was on this path or whatever. I am addicted to cocaine and now marijuana just to sleep. I'm like, how did I get here? And I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel guilty necessarily.
Because you were giving to people what you thought they wanted.
Right, yeah. And I thought I was vaulting who I was, for sure.
And I think that's a misconception for a lot of people in their drug use. This makes me stronger. This makes me be able to do more. I mean, there's a lot of moms that we've had from different counties here in Utah who got it just to keep up with everyday life, of being able to keep the house clean, take the kids here, do this. I mean, we've all got the same 24 hours, but sometimes people try to put a lot more into those 24 hours, and your body just can't physically do that.
Yeah, and it's using speed of any kind, cocaine, Adderall, whatever, something to speed you up. The misconception is a person, I'm at my best self. I'm learning the best. I'm really smart. I've enhanced my brain, and it's a lie because everyone else kind of sees, or eventually will see, now you're really not progressing. So it becomes this house of cards where you can't keep it up too long. Would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. In fact, it's ironic. If you have ADD, which I had extreme ADD, if you take too much of anything, you have worse ADD. I had the worst ADD of my life on it. And at first it was helping because it was kind of being monitored. I really wish the doctor would explain Adderall better to me at that point, but it was such a... Anyway.
Well, and those were the early days of it being abused so much. And so I think now the medical establishment has caught up to where it's highly controlled. All of the drugs in that class, like Adderall, are highly controlled. They're not easy to get a prescription for. When you do get a prescription, most, I should say, doctors or prescribers are going to really go over the details with you. But back in those days, it was, whether it was painkillers or ADHD meds, it was just kind of a, here you go, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, I was getting, it's funny if anyone knows, 40 milligram. They don't even give you 40 milligram. It's 30 is the highest you can take.
Yeah.
I was getting a 40 milligram, and that'll light your fire inside your brain. But like anything, it comes off, and they say you don't really. It doesn't really. It's not like a drug, Yeah, it is. It's literally like a drug. And then when it turns off, you're like, whoa, hey, don't stop, what's going on, man? I got to keep that fire going. And that was my biggest problem. Like, I couldn't stop that.
And
fire.
the higher you get, the bigger the crash, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so when people, when it's properly administered for the right reasons and people stay within that, then it's fine, honestly. But when you start abusing it and you get higher and higher and your tolerance increases, so you need more and more, and you're using it like you weren't living a healthy lifestyle either, right? Like you're not sleeping at night, you weren't.
He was talking about putting weight on was his plan.
And so your body is just dying for some rest and health, and so your crashes were, I imagine, huge.
Very, they were massive.
You're listening to Project Recovery. We're listening to Michael B. talk about his road to recovery. We're just about to see where it all turned around for him.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office.
To meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
I have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Project Recovery. We're listening to Michael B. You might know him from movies like Singles Ward, Church Ball, RM, Home Teachers. He's been in a lot of stuff.
What was your first movie, though?
It was Mulholland Falls. It was my first movie.
Yeah.
They cut his line. It was a sad day. But he was talking to us about his addiction and where it all began. He's a returned missionary, married, 4 kids, doing all these movies. Needed a little help, so went to a doctor, got prescribed Adderall, found out that Adderall was cheaper on the streets, got that, and then somebody convinced him that cocaine was the same thing as Adderall. And here you are, living this life for how long?
Oh, gosh. 15 years.
15 years. And what they say in the industry is running and gunning, just trying to keep everything afloat. I mean, it's like that guy you'd see in the old movies where they'd have plates spinning on sticks, and you're just going around just trying to keep every plate from going, right?
That's a good analogy. I like that.
I mean, that's kind of what you were doing, because I know that's what I was doing. If one was starting to wobble, it's like, oh, this one needs my attention for a little bit, get that going. And the whole time, all these other plates are starting to fall. And then eventually, they all fall. When did they all fall for you?
They all fell. It would be the last day of May to June 1st, 2008. And so I woke up in that field off Geneva Road, butt naked. And that's when it kind of...
Wait. You woke up in a field off of Geneva Road, butt naked.
Yeah, butt naked.
And were you still married at the time?
I was. In fact, it was pretty... I think my ex-wife probably hated me for the last several years, probably. But
did you blame her?
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course, I hated all women due to my past life. But so I thought she could be a fix, like I wanted every woman to do, be a fix. And
did she know about your drug abuse? Like, had she figured it out?
No, but when I did finally tell her that I did tell her I was drinking. You should never do alcohol with cocaine ever. So kids out there, don't mix, please.
Just don't do any of it.
Don't do any of it, but don't cocktail yourself out, because that's the stuff, it gets really dangerous. And so they're all dangerous. But anyway, I kind of told her that I was drinking, and I think she knew, but it was kind of liberating to kind of tell her a little bit. And I didn't really talk about it much after that. We didn't really talk about it at all.
Did you tell her in the hopes that she would ask you to stop or to try to fix you, or did you want to tell her to rub it in her face?
No, I wanted to tell her so that she would realize that this isn't about her. And I think all women, will kind of put it on their own. Well, it must be me. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with you at all. Nothing to do with you. You're just a cog in the wheel of a long history of hate. And that was a problem I had.
So let's go back. I mean, for the listeners, you mentioned that in your past life, some things had happened that kind of made you realize later that you had a problem with women. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah. When I was a young boy, when I was around 4 or 5, there was a woman who started to molest me. They lived fairly close to us in Tennessee, and that went on for about 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah.
That's a really long time.
It was a long time. I didn't think it was that long until I started going. I had the EMDR, and then I realized how long and how treacherous some of the things were.
And that was something that we'll get to in a minute that happened in your recovery process.
Right.
But EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a type of therapy that's primarily used in trauma, trying to help a person reprocess the experiences they had. And so you were saying that you weren't really aware that had happened for 8 years until then?
Not for 8 years, not even close. I knew things had happened, but I just kind of...
Repressed them?
Yeah. We had big time. I didn't believe in repressed memory. I thought, a couple things, whatever.
It sounds kind of hokey. Let's be honest. A repressed memory sounds kind of hokey
to me,
or like an excuse.
It sounds convenient.
Yeah, kind of like
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That people say it's repressed because it's just convenient. That I know what happened, you know what happens, but I just say it's repressed because then I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to think about it.
But the reality is, there are sensitive developmental periods, critical periods of development in our psyche and our perception of ourself, our personality, and those are the years. You said it started when you're 4 or 5 and went on for 8 years. That's all of that elementary school time, and those are the years when we really are forming a sense of how we feel about ourselves and how we see the world. So, because of that trauma, it doesn't surprise me that your brain tried to separate itself from what was happening and get away from thinking about that all the time. Yeah. If it happened for 8 years, you must have felt to some degree out of control, like I can't stop this from happening. I'm just a kid.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I blame myself. I never blame my mother, which is funny because most people do blame parents because they didn't protect them. But the woman would always tell me that I'll cut your mom's head off. I'll kill your father in his sleep.
So she threatened.
So there was a lot of that. And those are things I kind of put aside. And throughout that, there was a couple men that got involved as well. But people just assume, like, when you're a boy and a woman, that it's just sex and there's no violence, which is not true.
Oh, no.
So, and it's the violent side that I just kind of put aside. And then when I kind of started, I kind of like would say things out loud, kind of out of anger. Like, I'd hear people make comments. I'm like, you have no idea what it feels like to be a little boy and having your head slammed on the concrete and just everything shoved in everything you have. And then you have no one to share that with. You have no one that experienced that. It's hell. It's hell. So it does sound like it's a convenient thing, but you realize there's not 1 ounce of that trauma anyone wants to hear ever. Because they immediately put it into themselves and into their own children. And I told God, I can handle anything. Don't let that happen to my kids, please. Or I'll turn into a mass murderer. So I've been really fortunate in that aspect. But it's something that I'm 49 this year. Not a day in my life does a memory not come to my head.
Yeah.
And
well, I know I
had to learn to forgive that.
And it's something that, we talk about a treatment for that, like EMDR, but it's something that continues with you. You don't forget it.
Right.
And the reason that I think it's important to educate people on these situations, and thank you for doing that and talking about it so openly, is that it does happen to people. And if it's happened to you, reach out and get some help. A child doesn't have the skill set or even the mental capacity to know how to handle that when it's happening to them. That's why it really isn't a child's fault for not saying anything. We could talk about neurodevelopment and cognitive development and why, at 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, you didn't have the ability to even tell anybody about that. And you probably did feel the fear of the threat. That's a common technique for the molester to use to threaten the child, and you believe adults, even the perpetrator. And so as you grow up, those are so horrific, those memories. Just bringing them up now, you're getting emotional, and so you repress it, you put it away, and that is a real thing. So I do want to validate you and other people out there who have gone through this, that a repressed memory in that situation is not convenient. It's a real process to try to continue on your own personal development and kind of compartmentalize and put away that stuff. But eventually it shapes part of how you think and feel. And as you said, you feel like it affected how you saw women as an adult?
Oh, yeah, my whole life, even when I was younger. I can't tell you how many, like the main ball players. I mean, I played sports. I was really good. I was always super small. But they were always jerks to the girls. That was kind of like the thing in high school. I made out with all their girlfriends. No one knew. Because all the girls were like, oh, you're so sensitive. So kind of like, oh, my gosh, you kiss way better than whatever. And I was like, cool, man. Well, I just did that to show you that I had way more power than you, and I could take you from anything. And it's so dumb. I was never a person to let looks or that kind of thing, what I wore, what I drove, to ever affect, because I just never believed that. I wasn't taught that way, but I don't have low self-esteem at all. But in reality, I had the lowest self-esteem. But on the outside, it didn't appear.
So you were out there trying to steal guys' girlfriends
just
and control them just to prove you could do it, which was, again, kind of a subconscious way of trying to regain control in a female relationship.
Oh, yeah, big time. Yeah.
And so, unbeknownst to you, because of what happened to you, the trauma as a young child, it shaped the way you looked at women moving forward. And then you're married, you've got 4 kids, you're ending up, hooked on cocaine, smoking weed to sleep at night.
But you're a funny guy. Don't you think that trauma? You're welcome. Don't you think that trauma affected becoming a funny guy? Always being funny? Like,
for sure.
Why do you think you developed that side of yourself?
It was a good way to hide. It was the same reason why I liked drugs. I felt so high. I felt like I had power over it.
Well, you do have power over when you make everybody laugh, right?
Oh yeah, you can. It's an amazing thing when you make someone laugh, and their guard comes down like so far. And I'll bring the biggest, strongest dude, and I will, in a fun way, embarrass him on stage and make him as small as whatever. And it's cute and it's funny, but I'm not afraid of anyone or anything. But I lived in constant fear when I was younger. Constant. I feel like someone was on the back of my neck about to hurt me 24/7. And I had to get away from that. I had to walk away from that. And then when I started doing drugs and drinking, especially those together, I felt like I was unstoppable. And I guess in some ways I was. But the problem is that you put something aside you have to fix, it just gets worse and worse and worse, and years go on, and then it just breaks. And if I don't take care of a car or anything, it's going to break. It's going to be ruined. And I didn't take care of my body, didn't take care of my mind. But I thought if I could just do all that stuff, no one would see it, no one would care. They'd see how strong I was. I don't know how many times Kurt would go like, dude, you're sweating, man. Are you that hot? And I was like, do you know it's like when you're heavy, you just get hot faster in February. It's weird, I'm sweating profusely.
I got the February sweats, man. You don't understand.
Is a heater on it? Gosh. And I don't think they had – Kurt's such a sweet man. He and Dave, they're just good people. They weren't really partier people at all. So I don't think they picked up on any of the signs.
They wouldn't have known, right?
No.
Yeah. Naive.
Yeah. And then George came in and started working with all of us, and I could tell George knew from the second he laid eyes on me.
Some people can see right through you.
Gosh.
You're listening to the Project Recovery Podcast. We're listening to Michael B's story. We're going to find out about his rock bottom and what he's doing now. You're listening to Project Recovery, a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.